Today, we're going to look at a video, a TED Talk. I think it's called a TheoEd Talk. But before we do that, I want to jump into God's Word because I do believe that this speaker fits Jude's description of an empty talker. So let's go ahead and jump in to the scriptures. So Jude is starting out with the description and the qualifications of an elder. Now, this person is not an elder by any measure. However, I believe it's very important what the reason why they put elders in place. And so we go. This is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained in order and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. If anyone is above reproach, the husband of one wife, and his children are believers, and is not open to charge of debauchery or insubordination, for an overseer as God's steward must be above reproach. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered or a drunkard or violent or greedy for gain, but hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, disciplined. He must hold firm to the trustworthy word as taught, so that he may be able to give instruction in sound doctrine and also to rebuke those who contradict it. All right, here we go. This is where I want to go. For there are many who are insubordinate, empty talkers, deceivers, especially those of the circumcision party. And I want to stop right here. Paul was making it very clear here, the circumcision party. And we talked about this in our Galatians review one time before, that there were people who professed to be Christian, but they wanted to add something to the Christian faith. And particularly, they wanted the Greeks, or those persons who were Gentiles, to be circumcised in order to be able to become Christians. That's the Galatians heresy, Jesus plus. So Paul is calling out those persons who are Jews who are now converted to Christ, but they were holding on to something because they had already been circumcised. So they were telling the Gentiles who were coming into the faith that you have to be circumcised in order to be able to become a Christian, which is, of course, an error. I bring this up because this is what you are going to hear in the video that we're going to watch. This is the error of adding something else to the gospel. Jesus plus. They must, and we continue, they must be silent since they are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain. Now, some people get lost in the weeds and say, well, I don't believe so-and-so is making money off of this. That's fair. Not a problem. And I believe I actually answered this question with the Michael Eric Dyson video. I don't know if the guy is making money off of it per se, but he is speaking on MSNBC and being seen as a voice for critical race theory or voice for social justice and such, which is almost the same. Like the fame, the notoriety, the being able to be platformed, that's not cheap. There's value to that. So for shameful gain, what they ought not to teach. One of the Cretans, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. Therefore, rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not devoting themselves to, here we go again, Jewish myths and the commands of people who turn away from the truth. To the pure, all things are pure, but to the defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure, but both their minds and their conscience are defiled. They profess to know God, but they deny him by their works. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for any good work. So let's take a second and watch this video. Actually, the video is kind of long, so I do want to jump in quick, but just ask yourself, is she speaking the commands of people? Is she speaking basically Jewish myths? And you don't have to get lost in Jewish myths. Is she just teaching myths? Is she teaching something for shameful gain that she ought not to teach? Let's find out. This is Dr. Chanequa Walker-Barnes doing a TheoEd talk. And I guess this is a theology TED talk. Interesting. But let's go.
How does it feel to be a problem? This was the question that W.E.B. Du Bois posed to Black Americans in 1903 in his now classic text, The Souls of Black Folk.
So I do have to jump in real quick. 1903. So that was better than 118 years ago. Are Black people really being viewed as the problem or a problem that needs to be fixed or resolved in America in 2021? Really? 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 A problem. Really? Okay.
It had been just a few decades since the end of slavery and Reconstruction, and the United States was grappling with the problem of what to do with Black Americans who had been freed from slavery, but whose liberation threatened the unity of white Americans in the North and the South.
I want you to think about what she's talking about. And I want you to think, what is she talking about? She is talking about a time far gone, 100+ years in the past. When I say that these are live action role plays, I mean it. Like she's literally going to give a TED talk about something that happened better than 100 years ago. When today there are issues in the Black community or in America that need to be resolved that have nothing to do with ethnicity, have nothing to do with somebody's externals, has everything to do with our sinful, wicked hearts. Just saying.
Since then, the question of what to do about Black people has dominated discourse in the U.S.
Has it really?
What do we do about Black people?
Really?
About their poverty, their educational achievement gaps, their heightened rates of morbidity and...
I'm going to back it up, and I want you just to think, how is this? She's presenting this, that white America or less melanated America is literally sitting around a round table, if you will, saying, what do we do about highly melanated people? Is that really truly what people do? Put in the comment section. Do people really sit down and wonder, what do we do about Black people? Really? I'm just wondering, because I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that people do that. But even more than that, a better question is, let's say that that is the case. Why is Black America not dealing with these problems inside of Black America instead of looking out at other America saying, y'all are the reasons why we, poverty, education gaps, and so forth. Really? Back it up and watch.
Since then, the question of what to do about Black people has dominated discourse in the U.S. What do we do about Black people? About their poverty, their educational achievement gaps, their heightened rates of morbidity and mortality, their voting rights, even their presence in our neighborhoods, schools, and churches.
Who is saying that?
The irony of this question is that it is whiteness and not Blackness that is at the heart of racism.
Okay,
there are many forms of racism around the world, but in the United States, racism is about promoting and maintaining white supremacy.
And I have to say, this is my first, I missed that the first time. She said around the world there's many types of racism, which I actually believe that there are many types of partiality all around the world. Because if you go to India, there's a different type of partiality than if you are in Rwanda or somewhere in mid-Africa, which is different than somewhere in Latin America. Absolutely, 100% agree with that. Those are all sins, though. Those are all sins of partiality that can be dealt with at the cross. I know. I'm captain. I'm captain. I like to keep it real simple. This is a very simple issue. Bring them to the cross. And this woman does profess to be a Christian, so she has to be aligned with Scripture. So, all right, let's go.
The belief that white people are inherently superior to all other peoples of the world. And this includes everything about white people. Wow. Their bodies, their aesthetics, their beliefs, customs, values. White supremacy maintains that white people are uniquely suited for citizenship.
These are some major claims, and receipts need to be had for these type of claims to say that white people, and she's saying this as a blanket statement. And the reason I bring this up is, imagine if she were a white woman saying this about people of high melanin content, saying blackness and blacks and black racism. Imagine if she were saying that. Imagine that. And now, if she wouldn't get away with it, then you know that she don't need to be getting away with this. That's all I'm saying. Empty talkers.
And self-governance, that they ought to wield dominion and authority over all of creation, and that this is the way that God intends it.
Okay, somebody's got to ask, who says that God intended it to be this way? Who says that? Who has said it? Now, I'm sure there's probably some wackadoodle out there who said it, but I'm just going to ask you this. Because you have the scriptures at hand, you have the Bible that you can pick up with your hand, you got the Bible you can go to online. You are the fool if you sit there and believe that this is the way that God wants it to be. That's your fault. You're the fool. You're the dummy. So for her to continue to project an idea that can be demonstratively proven false, that's on her, but you're the dummy to follow her. That's all I'm saying.
The cleverness of white supremacy is that it convinces us that it is the victims of racism who are the problem.
You see how much she knows this?
When really the problem lies in the hearts, minds, bodies, and souls of the oppressors.
Now, she knows good and well she couldn't get away with just saying the hearts, minds, souls, and bodies of white people. She knew that. That's why she had to switch to oppressors versus, because she hadn't used oppressors. She literally just said white people. Then all of a sudden she went to oppressors. She had to do that because she knows that what she's saying, what she's describing is sin. That there's sin in our hearts. That is true. That is true. There's sin in our hearts, but it's not germane to white people or people of less melanin. All humanity has sinned. And she knows that she herself is a sinner standing up there talking about other people groups that are sinners. She knows this. And, oh, by the way, and she's presenting to sinners. And sinners are watching it. I mean, again, she knows this. So that's why she switched. And please note, that's what she did.
Indeed, if anything has become clear since the election of November 2016, it is that America has a problem, and its name is whiteness. Use of terms by, like, white people. It might feel like an insult or an accusation.
And you know this would not fly if she were a white woman. Is part of the problem.
Why is it, after all, that we can use terms like Black and Latinx and Indigenous and Asian American, but when we say white, people cringe?
What?
Why is it that I am?
Why is it that she knows so much about white people? I'm just wondering. Like, I mean, she's a woman of high melanin content. How do you know the ins and outs of every person of less melanin? How is that? Like, it's almost like you're omnipotent. It's kind of like you're a god. Oh, my bad. Because this is a new religion. This is a new religion, people. I understand a lot of people push back, say, well, CRT is not a cult. It is a cult. It is a cult. And this is proof positive. Exhibit, whatever. I don't know what number we're on at this point. This is a cult.
Comfortable checking off the black box on survey forms, but white people don't like to have their race named out loud. Why is it that I can have a racial identity and white people cannot? That my race is marked, but whiteness is considered normal, neutral, just American.
Okay, I'm going to actually stop my video here. I'm not going to go, I might go a little further. I'm trying not to. But I think it's very disingenuous for Dr. Walker-Barnes to mention how when you fill out an application, they ask you for your ethnicity and they don't have white on there because they have, like, you know, person of African descent, non-Hispanic, Asian descent. They do that. You know why? Because people like Dr. Walker-Barnes have made race such an issue that companies now and educational institutions and so forth have to make sure that they have so many people involved in it and so many people hired on teams and so many people enrolled and so many people using their product. So they have to do that. And otherwise, people like Walker-Barnes call them racist and say that they're discriminating or whatever like that. That's why. That's exactly why. So the idea that she's presenting it like, oh, well, white people don't have to denote who they are. So that's why the applications say black and such like that, because they're discriminating. I mean, that's basically what she's saying. But she's forgetting the fact that, no, y'all made so much noise that companies are trying to show that they do extend loans to, they do hire, they do enroll people of other ethnicities. So they have to show it in order to keep y'all from acting a fool with them. And keep in mind that tool has cut both ways, as Dr. Ibram X. Kendi in his tweet that he put out about students claiming to be minorities to get enrolled into schools, but they're actually people, they're white or other ethnic groups, because they realize that schools now have to have so many people of a certain ethnicity that they themselves are identifying as people of other ethnicities to get in. This is foolishness, vain babblings, empty talk.
So again, I'll ask, how does it feel to be a problem?
You're not a problem.
I have been navigating white culture for much of my life. And one of the things...
I know, man. I'm trying. American culture is not predominantly white. American culture is not predominantly black, Asian, Latin American, Indian, any of that. American culture is a montage, a mixing, whether you want to do the melting pot or the salad bowl, whatever example you want to use, it's a mix. So this is just foolishness. But again, she wouldn't be on this TheoEd talk if she was saying that ethnicity didn't matter or that race is not a real thing. That's all I'm saying. Empty talk.
Things that I have noticed, indeed anyone can who's been in white spaces, is that white people often react in very culturally prescribed ways, especially when the topic of racism comes up.
Why does she know so much
about white people? If you've been in these spaces long enough, you can begin to predict these responses with startling accuracy. Robin DiAngelo called one set of these responses white fragility.
If you're quoting Robin DiAngelo, please go ahead and check yourself at the door, grab your keys. Thank you so much. Tip your waiter on the way out. If you're quoting Robin DiAngelo, you already got problems. I'm just going to be honest with you. Robin DiAngelo is wicked, evil. She teaches wicked, evil, idolatrous teachings. So for this woman to stand up here again, professing to be a Christian, and quote Robin DiAngelo and referring to Robin DiAngelo, I must say there's nothing else of value that you have to say. Robin DiAngelo is terrible. Terrible.
It's as if there is an invisible force field connecting white people across space and time, directing.
Invisible force field, that sounds science fiction, but a visible force field connecting white people through space and time. This is vain, empty babblings, human traditions and commands.
Their responses in ways that they cannot see. In family therapy, we call that a system. And as a Black person who's been in that system, who's been living and working and sometimes worshiping in white context, I have had to learn how to navigate it in some peculiar ways many people of color do. We often have to code switch.
Many of you may or may not know that I used to be a school teacher. So code switching used to be a big buzzword many, many years ago. Code switching. If you're not familiar with code switching, it's very simple. The vernacular that you use when you're sitting out on the doorstep with your friends or your girlfriends, or you're just chilling with your friends at the club or the bar, that is your common speak. However, when you go to work on Monday, when you go to church on Sunday, when you get around your seniors or somebody who can write you a big check to make the next deal that you're for work, you're probably not going to use the same vernacular that you used in the club. You're probably going to use a vernacular that's more appropriate for the time being. Another example would be if your native language is not English. So if your native language is Spanish, at home, your mom and your dad are speaking predominantly Spanish, and you're speaking with your siblings and your family in Spanish. However, when you go to school, you might use English, or you're learning to use English. And sometimes you might accidentally flip between English and Spanish and whatnot, but you're learning another language. Those are two examples of code switching. She makes it sound, and I've watched this video and I might actually have to stop because it's driving my blood pressure up. However, she makes it sound like we are some kind of captives and that we have to code switch because the language that we use in our normal everyday settings is so freeing and liberating, but we have to shackle ourselves and bind our language in order to just speak in normal mixed company or in a business setting or an environment of that nature. That's actually just silliness. And I can prove it to you. She's actually code switching right here. I guarantee you, as sure as my name is Jason, she does not speak like she's speaking at Thanksgiving dinner with Big Mama and them. She don't speak like that. I guarantee you. So she will code switch. And if she's getting with her girlfriends from high school and they're all going on a girls' weekend to Cancun, she will not be speaking like she's speaking. She will code switch. So we code switch between inter-ethnicities as well as intra-ethnicities. It's just a reality. That's what people do. That's not a germane to only Black people. And we're not under some level of bondage. But again, she's making gain. This is a gain for her. Because again, she wouldn't be on this TheoEd talk if she were not speaking foolishness that she's speaking.
To adapt our behavior to fit into white spaces so that white people will think that we fit in, so that they'll invite us to the study groups or let us know about the jobs or write us letters of.
Let's say you were in college. I just want to show the silliness in this. This is foolishness. Let's just say you're in college and you're picking a study group of, again, let's say 4. Try and get 4 people to get together and study because you guys have a big test coming up in 3 weeks and you really got to get on it and get on the grind. Would you pick somebody who did not study to be in your study group? Like literally, they did not study at all. They did not come to class. They don't even have the book. They sleep when they do come to class. Would you invite that person? No, you wouldn't. And it's pretty fair that you would not, because you know that person's not prepared and you can see that they're not prepared. Watch this. What if a person did come to class, but their study habits were horrible? You knew that they did not study. You knew that they didn't take notes. You knew that they rode off of other people. Would you want that person to be in your study group? Well, no, of course, because you know they add no value to it. Okay. Or what if the person spoke absolute broken English, would you, if that person spoke horrible English and really truly demonstrated they didn't even care to learn or they weren't even trying, like, what in the world is this person saying? Like, what is that? Would you have that person in your study group? Well, of course not. You wouldn't. I mean, that's not a, come on, man. From those three examples, we know that you would probably say, nah, you don't study enough, homie. No, you don't become to class enough. I don't even know what you're saying. The exact same thing. Like, why would she act like, well, because you speak another language, I'm sorry, you don't speak proper English or you don't code switch, that's a form of racism. Because in my example, what if the person was white?
Recommendation or hire us. We've had to learn the contours of whiteness in order to avoid its sharp edges. We have had to bend and sidestep and sometimes leap to avoid its assault. We have had to armor up, to harden and conceal ourselves to withstand the brunt of its day-to-day impact.
So interacting with so please understand, she's only talking about people of high melanin and people of less melanin. So all the people in between, all the different shades between black and white are irrelevant. Does this actually sound, does this sound like Christianity to you? Does this sound like what she's speaking about even rhymes with the Christian faith? No. What religion is this?
This is the system that we have to learn to navigate.
Because nobody else had to.
And it's not just a system, it's a pathological one. In other words, it is a dysfunctional pattern of behavior that white people often feel compelled to act out, even though it might pose a danger to people of other races, even though it might cause them distress.
I'm gonna end right there. I'm sorry. This is Dear Woke Christian, and I'm actually gonna stop right here because I want to speak to Dr. Chanequa Walker-Barnes. Dr. Barnes, what you're teaching here in this TheoEd talk is not only divisive, not only minimizing issues and that people might truly have, but Dr. Walker-Barnes, this is a damnable heresy. And the rest of the video I will leave up in the description so you can watch the rest of it. But really, it gets no better. It gets no better. What you're teaching here, Dr. Walker-Barnes, is against the gospel. It is against the gospel. The idea that people, a people group, for no other reason but because of their ethnicity, are pathological. Dr. Walker-Barnes, this is unacceptable. This is Dear Woke Christian. The reason I do this open format podcast is to help you see the beauty and the wonder and the freeing liberation that comes through God's holy word. My prayer is that you will compare everything that you've been told to God's holy word, and that you'll reject anything that doesn't line up with his word. And that you will reject not only what doesn't line up with his word, but doesn't make much of Jesus Christ. What we've heard here today is an example of something of empty talk, vain babblings. Jude said, these people do this for gain. And again, what we watched today was that. But I do want to encourage you again, read what God's word is. If you're under this level, if you're under the sway of this type of teaching, if you're under the thumb of this kind of teaching that teaches that white people are a problem, that black people are a problem, if you're under that thumb, get from under it. Get from under it. You don't have to succumb to that. You don't have to. Get rid of it.